All right, so I think we should get started. Again, welcome everybody. My name is Kenneth Luna. I am a professor of linguistics and Spanish at California State University, Northridge, and I will be guiding you through this guided walkthrough of the new Gradebook. So again, welcome everybody. Everybody is on mute by default, so if you want to interact with me, ask any questions, please do so on the right side of your screen. You should see a section entitled Questions. Type in your questions there. And at the end of the session, we'll address all the questions there. So welcome to the guided walkthrough of the new super site. This is the new interface for the Gradebook that will go live in January 2018, and it will be available in all the super site 3.0 platforms, including Portales, Portai, and Senderos Prime. So we will give you an overview of the new interface, and you'll see the new design, the fast page loads, this very simplified navigation interface, and you'll see how the organization is a little bit different into work areas, but very aesthetically pleasing, very clean, very intuitive, and you will enjoy it a lot. So first of all, we'll get to the Gradebook, and we would do that as we normally do. We're using Vista's 5th edition as a sample. This is a test environment for you to see the new interface, and you will access the Gradebook as you would normally do right now in the 3.0 platform, which is through Grades in Gradebook. And this is the new interface for the Gradebook. As you see right away, looks much cleaner, very aesthetically pleasing. The interface is very, it pops out really well. So as you see right away, we have different what we call work areas. So you see right now the Gradebook is divided into two work areas, the scores and the roster area. Whereas if you remember before, everything was in one section. Now we have scores only for the scores, and then when you want to pay attention and look specifically at the rosters and your students and adding students or dropping students, you would do this in this work area. Okay, so right away, visually right away you can see that's the first difference from the previous super site. Also, if on the right side, you will be able to see a maximize button for maximize view. So if we click that, you'll see that it just gets rid of that top part. So the layout becomes a little bit bigger, so you can see more information on the screen. That's the maximize view. Or you can click again to go back to it and then see all the menus that were on the top before, okay? The main navigation is done through this area right here. You see that you can right away, you can navigate by weeks or lessons. So if you toggle that, you have lessons or you have due dates as you had before in the previous super site, but now all this navigation happens here in this area, okay? So if we go by lesson, we see all the lessons. If we go, we can filter down to a specific lesson. So let's look, for example, at chapter 1, lesson 1. When you click on that, you will see right away, look how fast it loaded. This is one of the big improvements of fast page loads. And you'll see right away the color coordinated lesson section comes in the header. So if you're familiar with Vista Higher Learning products, all the different subsections within a chapter have different colors. So you see here the contexto is red, and as we scroll through, we see the purple for the fotonovela, the blue for the grammar point, etc. So this corresponds to the color that you see in these corresponding sections in the textbook. Okay, and right away you see that again it's much cleaner. The view of the grades, and right off the bat, you can see here this new icon right here, which is the symbol for the late submission. It's a red L with a circle around it. Okay, and you can keep on filtering down here your Gradebook, right? So we're in chapter 1. Here we have all the activities, but you can certainly filter that down by only a specific subcategory. So let's say that I want to look at the first grammatical point. I can do that, and it will just then, dig down deeper into that section. I can toggle back to activities. And I can also filter by different categories, right? So I can look specifically at quizzes, at practice homework, depending on the categories that you set up on your Gradebook when you created your Gradebook the first time. So whatever you assign to that specific category in your gradebook. So I want to look at homework. You can look at the homework right there, and then it just takes you to the activities that were typed to that column on the gradebook. Okay. And as you could do also with the previous gradebook, you can toggle between percentages and points, right? For those of you who'd rather use a percentage view, then that's a default percentage, but you can toggle to points, and then it will change into a point system, as you see here, that goes to points versus percentages. Okay. So you see the navigation is all here. Much cleaner, very intuitive, very user-friendly. This is no different to what we had before the super-site. If you can remember how it was called up here, the breadcrumb navigation. You could do one of the ways that you could navigate into the different columns or sections of the gradebook. But now everything happens in this, through filters. Okay, so it's right there. It's very obvious, very intuitive. You know right then and there that this is where you go to navigate, and it's clear to everybody. Another improvement, another area that's going to look different in this gradebook is how we view and accept late work. Okay, so I'm going to toggle to the view for the late work, and you'll see that this is on a test environment. So if I go here, this is a test environment. You see that you have scores, rosters, and there will be a third workspace that will be entitled late work, as you see here, scores, roster, and late work. And this is great. Look at this. You can filter by lessons. Again, you can do all that filtering by all the different, use all those powerful filters that were provided. And then here you see all the late assignments all on one page by students. You have all the information, what was submitted late by that student, and information about the late submission, right? Like the grade, the scores, the category, the due date, all that, all in one page. You can see that. And then, whenever you're ready to assign, to accept late work, you can just go ahead and select everything, or you can go ahead and select individual assignments and then click on the accept. So I actually have a short clip, a short video to show you how this accept late work will work. So I will narrate over that. So remember how you can click on the activity? You would click on the actual activity if you want to accept late work individually, right? And then you see the earned scores and all the information that, just like you did before, you click on the accept late work, and then you can write a note to yourself, which is optional, and you click accept, and this is how you would accept late work. Again, not that different from how you did it before. It's very similar. So if I go back to the interface, right, this is the general gradebook. This is where you would do individual late work, which is what I just showed you right now. And then you will have this late work space where you will have everything together. You can see and accept everything together, as opposed to individual activities, which you would do here, as we saw in the video clip, by clicking on it. And you see it's not that different. The interface is much cleaner, crisper. It's, it's better, but the functionality is exactly the same thing as you saw before in the previous gradebook. Okay. So what about the column actions, what you can do with the different column actions? Okay, so let me show you here when you look at a single assignment, what it will look eventually on the new gradebook interface, right? So if you click on a particular column, you will get a couple of menus for you to do different things. For example, actually view the activity, the accept the late work, the quick grade, and the grade to go inside and grade the activity. Again, these actions all work the same as the current gradebook. You see, nothing changes in that respect. I want to call your attention to, again, the late work symbol, which is this L. Much better now to see what is late right off the bat by looking at the gradebook. Right before, remember that the late work was shown the score was shown in red, but now you have this L symbol with a circle around it to let you know, and if you see, pops out much better, that what is late from the different activities. You can still do single student view, right? So if you're interested in looking at a student individual score, you can actually go and click on a specific student, right? So I can just click on the student, and what it will do is it will open up a window, and you will have here the information for that student, which now in this version of the SuperSite Gradebook, it's called Overview. So it's called Overview. In the previous SuperSite, it was formerly called Summary, so now it's called Overview. You will see this overall snapshot of how the student is doing in your class with the cumulative score and all the breakdown for all the different categories that you have in the Gradebook. But I want to mention that this is one of the places where Vista Higher Learning it's really interesting. We really want instructors and teachers feedback about what you would find useful in this overview screen. Remember, this is before was a summary. Now it's called Overview, but this is not set in stone. We want your feedback on what you would like to see in this overview session. Okay, so at the end of the walkthrough, you will get a survey to provide this feedback. So please do so. Vista Higher Learning is very, very interested in your feedback. As you know, one of the great things about Vista Higher Learning is that they're really responsive to instructor feedback, and they actually incorporate all that feedback. Is not like they ignore it. They actually take it into consideration and implement a lot of the things that we tell them that we would like to see. Okay, so it has the overview, and you also have the score section right here. Okay, so here we have the score section. So here is another place where we have these two work areas, but just like before where you had this sort of overview before in the previous Gradebook, now you still have it on this one. And you will also have this score section, which was that details section in the current Gradebook, detail section where you can actually see all the individual activities and information about all the different activities. And again, we keep this a filtering system for you to actually dig in deeper into your activities, okay?
Kenny.
So that is for the single student view. And so far we've been looking at—
Can you hear me?
Uh-huh.
We can't see that screen. I don't know if it's being blocked. The overview screen, all we see is the main Gradebook screen.
All right, so let me see if I do this. It may be a browser thing. So let me actually, and hopefully you should see this now.
That's perfect. Thank you very much.
Okay, so let me go back, and for those of you, I'm sorry about that. So when you click on to look at the single student view, again, what you do is like as you did before, you click on the student name, it will pop up a window. Okay, in this case, you couldn't see the new window, but I just open it as a separate tab in my browser. But it originally pops out as a separate window. And again, here you have the student single view for their scores, right? So as I said, the overview, here you see a general snapshot of how the student is doing. And again, this is one of the places where Vista Higher Learning would like your feedback on what to include in this overview, on this overview page, okay? And again, if you toggle here to scores, then it takes you to this, again, the detail section, what the current Gradebook calls details, okay? Again, with the information, all the activities listed, and then all the information about all the different activities. And again, this filtering system for you to dig in, deeper into individual activities for sections or categories of your Gradebook. So again, overview, formerly called summary, and scores, formerly called details, okay? So let me go back. That was the single student view. And so far, we've been working on this work area, right? Scores, the main Gradebook. Let's look at the roster work area. Here's what you will see, all your different students. I just want to mention a quick disclaimer for secondary schools. If you're secondary school and you use Clever, there are no email options. And if you use Clever rostering, there are no add or drop student options as in here. And marketing and sales will be sending emails that details this information to those of you who use the Clever rostering system. But other than that, everybody else will see the roster section in this way, okay? So you see you have different buttons here to add and drop students. So I will play for you another quick clip on to show you how to add or drop students, okay? So for adding a student, again, you click on that Add Student button right there, And then you can search the student by name, username, or email. And then you would select the student, you click on the Add Student button. It will give you a confirmation screen to make sure that that's what you want to do. And it gives you a confirmation here that the student has been enrolled in your course. Okay, by the same token, let's say that now what you want to do is drop a student, right? So in order for you to drop a student, you just click on the drop student link. You select the student or students that you would like to drop. You click drop, it asks for a confirmation, and it drops a student. But a cool thing is that, if you by any chance made a mistake, here this undo button that will show up for a little bit for you to, if you drop someone by mistake, then you can go ahead and undo that action, okay? So this is, very similar to what's currently done in the Gradebook, okay? And when it comes to grace periods, for higher education, for those of you in higher education, right, community colleges or universities, the grace period allowances for financial aid. So for those of you who don't know, you can work with your language specialist, and for financial aid delays, a lot of students in higher education, they don't get their first financial aid check until later on during the semester, so they may not have the money to purchase the book or the right, the materials for the course. So Vista Higher Learning allows grace periods. So the grace period for higher education will remain the same, and it will show up on this page, and it will be exactly the same. So if you are a school for which a grace period situation has been allowed, you will see that option there, and it will function exactly as it currently functions to give students that grace period to access the materials before they purchase all they need to purchase, okay? And then another thing is, like, you probably noticed this exclamation point next to the roster, and it's something, similar to what you currently see in the Gradebook, which is sometimes you see this exclamation point next to some students' names, okay? And what that icon means is insufficient access. So when you see that icon, that tells you that someone in your roster doesn't have the correct access, and then when you go into the roster, you will see also that same symbol next to the student who doesn't have the right access. And what does that mean, to not have the right access, right? So for example, the student doesn't have correct privileges for the program, doesn't have a code, or doesn't have a site license seat assigned. Or for example, it's very common if students make, especially in higher education, they get confused and they don't have the right access level. Let's say that in your course you require SuperSite Plus with a VTEX, and the student didn't buy the access with the SuperSite Plus, rather just the basic SuperSite. So then an exclamation point will show up next to the student to let you know that that student doesn't have the correct access. Or for example, if the access expires before the course end date, you will also see that with that exclamation point with the circle around it, okay? So that is for grace periods and for insufficient access. So as you see, before everything was together in what was essentially this view the scores view, right? Before, in the current Gradebook, we don't have these workstations, but now it's just, it's more user-friendly in that it splits, it separates, distinguishes between the different functions depending on a workstation, right? So for example, if all you want to do is add or drop a student, or give a grace period to a student, or look at access, that makes sense that it is in the roster work area, right? Because it has to do with the students adding or being in the course or not, right? Rather than the actual scores, which is once they're in and they're doing activities, that's what it is, okay? And we don't have it preview available at this time for things like add an external item, but this is actually something that will still show up. You don't see it here, but it will show up. It's currently in the current SuperSite. You can add external items. Let's say, you can add external activities to grade. Let's say that you have a class presentation and you want to add that as an item in one of the categories in your Gradebook. You can actually do that in the current Gradebook, and you will still be able to do that in this Gradebook. And somewhere in this area, you will see that add external item icon, just as you see it now in the current Gradebook. And lastly, I'm going to talk about this, the reports and the export function. So on this version of the Gradebook, we have this like export icon right here. And what this does is like, it really gives you right away, it just immediately captures the current Gradebook view into a CSV file or an Excel file you can open with Excel, whatever you have on your screen, it will export, right? So let's say that I'm looking at chapter 1, and then it's giving me all the activities for chapter 1. And when I click on export, it will just automatically download a file to my computer, giving me a snapshot of this current view of the gradebook right then and there. Click export, you get the file immediately. What I have on the screen, that's what gets downloaded for you to see, okay? This is a quick way of getting data and downloading this specific portion or whatever you have in view in your gradebook, right? But this doesn't mean that the report functionality that you've gotten used to in the current gradebook will go away. Actually, the simple reports, if you remember these reports that you could access to grades, where you could see the time spent, you could filter, you could create reports also like all the lessons and the time spent and the points, etc. That will still be there, but this is another place where where Vista Higher Learning would like instructor and teacher feedback about what you find useful in reports. So again, at the end post webinar, you will get a survey where you can provide feedback for Vista Higher Learning. Okay. So that is the general overview. I'm going to go ahead and look at any questions that you may have. So let me see.